Well, welcome everybody to Planning and Zoning Board. Would you please take the roll?
Absolutely. John Zeiser,
Present.
George Ivy,
Present.
Ryan Knight,
Present.
Steve Hart,
Here.
Carrie Mullins.
Present.
All present.
And or accounted for. Okay, so this is the time where we'd like to open up the meeting for public comment. And as I see, we have a blazing crowd of enthronged citizenry with their pitchforks and torches eagerly awaiting to storm the Bastille. You had anything?
That was yesterday.
It was almost Saturday.
All righty, shall we move on? We will move on from public comment, which we had such a plethora of, to items for consideration. 1A, the rezoning of approximately 1 acre of real property owned by Dr. Ristea, whom is not present, from the residential single family to general commercial use. If you look at your map, you will see that he wished to divide his property roughly in half. The section that he would like us to annex is the street frontage, and he has an access via an easement off on the left-hand side of the page to his dwelling. And the item for consideration is the highlighted portion on yours.
May I comment?
You may.
I think what you're referring to the left side is actually a little alley that goes over to his other commercial properties. I think what we're dealing with is parcel C, which is 1.054 acres, which is basically the front yard of the residential property that used to be
Correct.
owned by, I think Linda Wharton used to own that. It's a very, very nice upscale property. He now owns all those parcels. He owns as I understand it, owns the home. Is that correct?
As I understand it, yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So right now, there's unity of ownership between what's going to be rezoned and the house. The only concern that I have is, and I checked, there's no acreage requirements as far as construction. Apparently, this meets that. But if he develops this, he's going to have to reconfigure the driveway in case there's a side yard or setback requirement issue. So I just wanted to make that part of the record. It's too bad he's not here so we could discuss that a little bit. But he's basically doing two parcels, combining them, it looks like, into parcel C. I have no problem with it. Obviously, he's not going to object because he's the petitioner, and the parcels nearby are commercial in nature, so there's no problem with mixed use except for the home, but that's his problem. I suppose one could say that this is spot zoning in a way, but I don't think it really is. If anything, it's reverse spot zoning. So I would approve it. I would make a motion to approve it.
Yeah, and just to clear up, so he owns 3 different parcels. He's not touching the part that's on the water. He's really just touching the part that's towards State Road 21.
So the single-family dwelling is a property he does not own?
No, he does. I'm just saying
Yeah.
that's a separate parcel.
Yes.
And it's a very nice parcel,
Yes.
too,
Right.
and I don't know what he's going to do with it. I'm surprised he didn't.
But he's reconfiguring the lot lines
Correct.
on those parcels
Yeah.
as well.
I had thought that alleyway was an easement.
It actually connects to the Blue Lagoon and the Family Dollar properties that he also
Mhm.
owns. So.
Oh, he owns those too?
Yeah, he does.
Or okay.
Which gives him the same rights as it would have road. But
Right.
unfortunately, because it's on 21, like
I would-
Councilman Hart was saying, I don't think that would be spot zoning because you're in a commercial area.
Well, I'm not going to raise that as an objection. In fact, I've pretty well ruled it out as spot zoning because there's unity of ownership, and and nobody's complaining. So I would have no problem with approving the rezoning of the 1.054 acres. That would be
Okay.
my motion.
Thank you. Any further comment before we proceed with the motion?
Let's see if there's a second before we have discussion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Perfect. We have a second. We have a motion. Motion carries. I would just like to add for discussion,
Wait, so you have a motion, a second. Is there any other discussion?
I was going to add one, yes.
Okay, no, because you said motion carries. Usually that means a vote's been taken.
My mistake. Thank you for correcting me.
No, I just want to make sure we're tracking.
We are discussing. We haven't quite voted yes. Thank you.
Okay.
there is a fruit stand on there. Has he mentioned to either one of you two city employees what he plans on doing with that fruit stand?
No, sir, he did not. In fact, we had to code violate him and have it cleaned up before he could even list this property for sale. So as far as I know, it's going with the property, and whoever purchases that in the future will probably be responsible for cleaning it up and getting it
Okay.
gone.
Not that we have a say as long as he complies with
Correct.
the uses permitted in general commercial and also incorporated is general business, I guess. As long as he complies with any of those uses, I think our job is done once we do the rezoning and once the map is changed. Is that correct understanding?
Not knowing what use would go in there, that's hard to answer. So sometimes there may be a use, like hypothetically, if there was a sale of alcohol, there's certain uses that have to come back to you for approval. So,
That'd be a use by exception.
Right.
But permitted uses, as long as he does a permitted use, and there's a whole bunch of them,
Yes.
including the sale of beer and wine.
but sometimes, as long as it's not, if it's one of the permitted uses, then yes. you
And
would
as long as
see.
he meets the setback side yard and front yard requirements, I think that's it.
Mhm.
Anybody have any additional comments at all? We have a motion to vote. Yes or no on the rezoning approximately 1 acre. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Sounds unanimous. 1B is land use change from residential single family to general commercial. Doesn't that fall under 1A, Mr. Commando?
So the law says you have to take two separate votes for the land use change as well as the rezoning.
Okay.
So think of your land uses, that's your constitution, that's your big picture vision for the property, and then your zoning has to be compatible with your land use. So
So we're gonna ask for a motion to change the land use to general commercial. Is that correct?
from single family to general commercial, yes.
Do I have a motion on the floor, from the board, to change it from, single family residential to general commercial?
And to change the planning map to coincide with this.
Yes.
And I think staff has found, and we can give great weight to staff, that this is not incompatible with the overall plan. Isn't that correct, Stephanie?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Mr. Hart, is it safe to say you made that motion?
I haven't yet, but I will.
Okay.
I do.
Thank you, sir.
May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you very much, sir. Do we have any discussion on the change? Very well, we shall vote. Ayes approved, nays? We'll shoot it down. All in favor?
Aye.
I believe we have a second unanimous. Do we have any comments from the board at all? This is the time when we would discuss amongst ourselves. Anything we might want to change? Well, I'm pretty happy with the day and time, or anything else anyone wishes to discuss.
We all got the application for, the Wiggins property. We are looking into it. Give us about a week or two. I don't know if we're going to need additional meetings because we are going to be reaching out. Bo and I do not have the experience to do this alone, so we're going to be reaching out to an expert to guide us through this process with him.
You're talking to Mr. Mike up at the county?
Is that who we're in contact with?
We spoke with Mike Brown before.
Yeah,
I think he was set to retire, so I don't know if he's gonna be an option anymore.
Okay.
But we're reaching out to.
We hope to have a plan in place by early August, and if that requires an additional meeting, I'll reach out to you and we'll
Okay.
communicate and try to get that squared. I just want to make sure the Wiggins property is done well and right the first time around.
Now, Joe has two properties. Which one are we talking
The,
about?
Sunrise.
Sunrise.
Sunrise. okay.
So this is essentially, to give you a 40,000 foot overview, if you think of the property that Jed Duckrow did with Country Meadows,
Yeah.
imagine everything that Jed did, but Joe is looking at taking a number of the single family homes and he's looking to put, I think there's 6-plex townhomes in, so
Yes.
he wants to incorporate some multifamily.
On 8 lots, he wishes to put in a multiplex, so we would need a rezoning. He did request a tree variance because he wants to remove all the trees and put in his landscaping trees. And I believe there might be 1 or 2 other items, but those are 2 right off the top of my head. From
Right,
what I read.
so it's technically a rezoning even though it's from PUD to PUD. So you'll see that come before you.
Changing the plan to another plan.
Well,
Pretty much.
he's changing the plan, he's changing some of the conditions, or he would ask for some of the conditions to be changed.
Very much like with Duck Row, if he would have followed our PUD, he wouldn't have to come before us.
I think that's where he got hung up was the trees, wasn't it? Wasn't that the big deal?
There were a few things.
Yeah, there
It
were.
was the number of lots, it was the trees, it was the width of the streets, access,
Sinkhole issues,
the
maybe?
sinkhole issue,
Yeah,
right?
remember that?
I did do my homework and watched that video like 8 times.
I think ultimately we've got a little bit of road ahead of us, so we're gonna start plugging our way through it.
That's fine.
Well, Joe seems to be a very.
In any
reasonable
other
guy.
government, honestly, it would take planning staff time, even for the ones that have planners on staff. It would take them time to go through the application to make a recommendation to you.
Since we're talking about Mr. Wiggins, I do want to let everybody know, he did send me an email and asked me to a sit-down. I have not responded to the email.
They can all sit down with Mr. Wiggins. It's just I that,
No, you can, anybody can.
Okay.
I
mean,
just wanted to,
You
So-
can have a
in the
meeting.
interest of public disclosure, I was
So-
reached out to.
I received one also.
That's good, and just so you know, you're allowed to meet with them. What I would say is, do not prejudge anything, because that's the purpose of an open meeting. So when the presentation's made to you, and then based upon public comment, that's when you decide whether or not you should approve or deny an application. I wouldn't make any sort of committing, because if you prejudge something, that may create a problem for your consideration later down the road.
And
But
is
you're
it
allowed
good-
to meet with him, you're allowed to listen to anything that he has to present. Like you just did now, when it actually comes before you as an agenda item, you'll make what's called an ex parte disclosure, meaning that you've had a conversation with him outside, because a change in zoning is what's considered quasi judicial. So there's a lot of legal words to say. You have to let the public know that you met with people, whether they're in favor or in opposition to the project. You don't have to disclose that you met with staff, but if you met with people in the community at all related to the project, you'll make that disclosure.
There is no obligation to meet, though.
Nope, there's not an obligation. Like, for example, I have a Baker County commissioner who, he says, look, I would prefer to have any of these conversations in public. He will not meet with people. I'm not suggesting that's what you should do, but that's kind of the spectrum of what's available.
Okay, that's good. That's what I will do. I'm going to let him know I prefer not to discuss it.
That's up to you.
So I received the same email. I deleted the email, and my reasoning is I would like to hear more. I think my understanding is that the council maybe, as far as future planning in the city with some of the plans and things they have, I would like to do some more reading on that and hear from them, and to continue doing further readings into what he has previously told the city and others that he would like to do with that property before speaking with him. And I would probably want to do it in a public setting as well.
So you bring up another interesting point. Just remember that anytime you receive an email, even if it's of no benefit to you, it's a public record. So I would tell you don't delete them.
Okay.
If you want to print it out and then give it to the city to keep track of, that's fine.
Yeah,
Well-
I forwarded it, is what I did.
Yeah.
I'll put it this way. I thought it was spam. If I don't know you and you send me an email, I don't open the email.
I understand.
So,
Okay. At some point, we probably should set up, this is a conversation for us, should set up just the city emails so that anything you're doing work on related to the Planning and Zoning Committee just kind of tracks emails through that. It makes it easier if we ever get a public records request that we can respond.
Yeah, I didn't know it either.
that was
Thank you
an
very much.
option.
Mrs. Silva, can you take care of that?
Absolutely.
All right, thank you.
I have a question. This is the Planning and Zoning Board.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
I have been to 4 meetings now, and all we do is vote on exceptions. I have yet to hear anything regarding planning. What is the forum or the focus of that activity?
So there's a couple ways that that'll come about. Like this isn't an exception, this is a change for these two types of applications. Like Mr. Wiggins with Sunrise Estates, that'll be another change. As far as changes to the actual context of the code, you can read it and you can bring items that you think need to be changed, and we can discuss it and put it on an agenda for a vote, and then we can prepare an ordinance that would effectuate that change. Separate from that, every 7 years, Florida law says you have to have what's called an evaluation and appraisal report, meaning that there has to be a review of your code, and they're called EAR amendments, and then sometimes there are amendments that are ministerial, meaning sometimes the legislature will make a change and we have to update our code to match the legislative change in statute. But it's also an opportunity to do planning. It's the chance for you to take a look at your code, take a look at the vision for the city, and if there are certain adjustments that need to be made at that time, traditionally they're made through the year amendments.
And I think we are the official planning agency for the city, at least in that regard. Is that correct?
So in other governments, you'll hear the term LPA, or Land Planning Agency. You, as the Planning and Zoning Committee, are the designated LPA.
So we have clout.
You do. Honestly, I mean, and I'm not saying this just because you're here, to me, in every government I work with, planning and zoning is the most powerful, more powerful almost than council. It's the most powerful actions that any government takes, because you have the ability to say what somebody can and cannot do with their own property. I mean, other than taking someone's liberty, that's one of the most influential levels of decision governments make.
I guess my vision about planning is a more broader based, what's the city going to look like in 5 or 10 years? Is that within our purview, or is that more the
Yes.
city council?
Nope, that's within your purview.
So what triggers this conversation, vision, dialogue?
You can ask to have a workshop, and in a workshop bring up, I would say, have some particular items that you want to see amended or changed,
Mm-hmm.
and then work from there within the group as a workshop. And then whatever comes out of that workshop, we'll bring to a regular meeting to discuss whether or not it should be recommended to council for the full ordinance for the change.
So this committee, this board can present ideas about the future.
Absolutely. Like when we're in board comments, you can ask, traditionally, this is the time where you would ask for things to be put on a future agenda. Now, if you have something big, like Sunrise Estates, you may not want to add it to that, but if you have another meeting like tonight where you don't have as many things coming on,
Mhm.
traditionally, that's when you would try to have those discussions.
So you're asking about that, just to put a bug in everybody's ear. On the 22nd at 6 p.m., we will be discussing a lot of the plans that the city has had on the back burner, such as the tennis courts, basketball court, pickleball court, Geneva Jungle, all these wonderful projects that haven't been completed. We will be discussing those the night of the 22nd, so that's your chance to kind of come get in and on board on that.
And what board is that?
That is just a regular council meeting.
City council?
Yes, sir.
Council
A
meeting
special
workshop.
meeting, I'm sorry.
Is that a workshop?
It is a workshop.
But keep in mind too, I mean, from where you sit, once a year, FDOT comes and makes a presentation. Pay attention to that presentation, because as they work on different arterial roads that affect the city, sometimes that affects your vision as far as where commercial should be, where residential should be.
Mm-hmm.
And for those who didn't know, back in the year 22, on June 20th, the whole thing with the duck row presentation was here. It's a very long video. It's about 3 hours long.
It was a trial.
Yeah, I would very encourage everybody here who has not seen it to go through it. You do have your city meeting portion, and you have you're obviously present there, and you have the duck row meeting in it there, the full discussion, all the disclosure. This place was full. A lot of folks had a lot of things to say about it.
It was a trial, and there were a lot of traps. But we, with the aid of council, of course, we
Oh, yeah.
waded through it.
But it's nice for all of us to be able to watch it who weren't there to get bullied up on the information.
That's sort of our what we do on steroids.
Yeah.
Or what,
Like I said, I watched that
or what the
video.
council did.
Watched that video
Right.
about 6 or 8 times. Prior.
That's probably the most intense any of your work will ever get, is
Yeah.
something like that.
Well, it's a trial, basically. Though it's wide open as far as hearsay and that sort of thing, but we had some evidentiary issues we had to address. So, it was a lot of fun, actually.
One last friendly reminder for all of you, and you've probably all done it, I just haven't checked. Form 1 is required from each of you from sitting on this planning and zoning board.
I didn't do it. Where can I find form?
I can email you the link.
Please.
Not a problem, I'll get that to you tonight or in the morning,
Thank
first
you.
thing.
We do that annually, right?
Yes, sir, you do it annually, and once you've done it once, it should automatically email remind you and send you a physical piece of mail every year.
Okay. Can you validate whether we're all
I
clean?
absolutely can, and I will send out an email tomorrow.
Very good.
Rich, I have a question. I did the wrap-up for council when they changed the format. Was it Form 5, 4, and 6? I can't remember.
You probably had to do Form 6.
I
as a
did.
council.
I did as a final for the council. Now, do I have to do a Form 1 for this year file it next year, do
I
you know?
don't think so.
I don't believe so. I believe when I pulled you off of council, all of your information transferred because I've already put you on this
You'll-
planning and zoning.
You'll
board.
just have to do it next year.
Well, okay, I'll just go to jail.
Honestly, the Form 1 is much easier.
Form 1 is not a piece of cake.
The breeze.
Well, on my suggestion, I don't think I'll do it for this year,
This covers the.
but I'll file next year.
Right.
I haven't gotten any bad emails saying I'm missing anybody yet.
And
But
just so everyone knows, there's no longer a physical form. You have to input the information online. So,
You can print off a copy when you do it.
do they let you submit
Yeah.
a printed copy? I thought they were
No,
only
no, you
accepting
put it in, but
electronic.
you can print off your copy where you
Yes,
submit
I'm
it. They'll
sorry.
give you a receipt.
Right.
Any other comments? Before we adjourn, I would like to recognize our 2 new members. Would you please introduce yourself so it can go on the record?
I'm Steve Hart. This is the chair, sort of, that I occupied, 12 years ago, one of the first things I did with the city, and now it's sort of full circle. It's a lot of fun. I enjoy it.
I am Carrie Mullins, and this is my first time being on any sort of board, but I'm very excited to learn. And I've been working in land surveying basically my whole life, but that is my profession, so I have some experience with land development.
You're the one I call when I need the stakes put down.
There you go, that's me.
You
could have Okay.
deciphered all those maps.
Yes.
Anything else from anybody else? I call this meeting adjourned. Thank you very much for your attendance.
Thank you.
Great leadership.
And I wouldn't go that far, but.
From US.